The night of revelation. A transformative journey. It was an ordinary evening, or so it seemed. The sky, painted in hues of deep orange and violet, was surrendering to the oncoming night. Sarah sat on her porch, cradling a cup of tea, lost in thought. Her life had become a series of endless questions without answers. Why hadn't her hard work paid off? Why did the doors she knocked on remain closed? She had prayed, waited, and fought through sleepless nights, but clarity evaded her. As she gazed at the first stars appearing, an inexplicable stillness fell over her surroundings. The air grew dense, not with foreboding, but with an almost tangible sense of expectation. Suddenly, a whisper, soft yet commanding, filled the air. "My child," it said, "tonight, you are about to experience something extraordinary." Sarah froze. The voice wasn't external, yet it resonated deeply within her. It carried a warmth that enveloped her, dispelling her fears. She instinctively knew this wasn't her imagination. It was something, or someone, divine. "This is not just another ordinary night," the voice continued. "It is a sacred moment filled with profound and transformative meaning. I have something important to tell you, something that will change your life in ways you cannot yet imagine." Sarah's heart quickened. She set her tea down, the mundane world around her fading into insignificance. This was a moment unlike any she had ever experienced. The divine invitation. The voice spoke again, its tone both gentle and firm. "The achievements you have been praying for, the answers you have been seeking, are closer than you think. But to receive these blessings, you must listen carefully. Every moment of this night carries decisive meaning." Sarah felt her skepticism falter. She had spent so much time doubting whether her prayers were heard. Now she felt as though every tear she'd shed, every whispered plea, had been collected and acknowledged. "Stay with me," the voice urged, "for I will reveal something that will alter your path and open doors you thought were closed forever." Her mind raced. What could it mean? What doors? As though sensing her confusion, the voice continued, "Time is short. What will happen tonight will change everything. Be alert and pay close attention to the signs unfolding around you." Sarah felt her spirit stir, a mix of anticipation and trepidation filling her chest. Was she ready for change? The voice reassured her. "Feel my all-encompassing presence, bringing you peace and courage to accept the changes ahead. Trust me completely, knowing that I guide you every step with infinite love and wisdom." A journey within. As the voice spoke, Sarah felt an inexplicable warmth spread through her. Her burdens, though still present, felt lighter. Memories of her struggles came flooding back. The rejection letters, the lost opportunities, the nights spent doubting her worth. But the voice reminded her, "The obstacles and challenges you have faced were all part of my divine plan. They have strengthened your faith and prepared you for the blessings that are about to come." Tears filled her eyes. She hadn't seen her trials as preparation, only as punishment. Now she saw them for what they truly were, stepping stones to a greater purpose. "The heavens are moving in your favor," the voice assured her. "I open doors that no one can close, doors that lead to the fulfillment of your purpose." Signs and wonders. Suddenly, the world around her seemed to shift. The wind carried an unfamiliar melody, gentle and reassuring. A shooting star streaked across the sky, its brilliance momentarily lighting up the night. Sarah felt a strange pull to look around her, and as she did, she noticed things she hadn't before. The way the trees seemed to sway in harmony, the soft glow of the moonlight reflecting on the leaves, and the way her heart seemed to beat in rhythm with it all. "These are the signs," the voice said. "They are confirmations that I am working in your life. Pay close attention, for they may be subtle, but are undeniable." Sarah marveled at how the ordinary now seemed extraordinary. It was as if her eyes had been opened to a world she hadn't known existed, a world where divine fingerprints were on everything. The call to trust. "You may not fully understand everything happening around you," the voice continued, "but trust that each step brings you closer to the promise." Sarah nodded, Though no one was there to see her, she felt a renewed sense of faith, a conviction that even her pain and confusion had a purpose. What the enemy meant for harm, the voice declared, I will turn to good. Plans made against you will be destroyed, and my will for your life will be established instead. Do not fear the unknown, for I am already there. Her doubts began to dissipate. She felt the chains of fear loosening, replaced by a peace that surpassed her understanding. The transformation. As the night deepened, Sarah felt herself changing. The voice spoke of freedom. Freedom from the doubts and fears that had held her captive. The barriers that stood in your way will be removed. The chains that bound you will be broken. You will discover a new power within you, a power that has always been there. She remembered moments of doubt when she had felt inadequate, unable to move forward. Now she saw those moments as tests, not of her ability, but of her faith. This power, the voice explained, comes from abiding in me. It is the power that moves mountains, the power that overcomes obstacles that once seemed impossible, the promise of fulfillment. Sudden changes are coming, the voice continued. What once took years will now happen swiftly. The delays you faced were not denials but refinements. You are ready now. Sarah felt a surge of hope. The waiting, the tears, the nights of questioning, they hadn't been in vain. She was being prepared for something far greater than she had imagined. You have come too far to turn back now, the voice encouraged. This is the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter of promise, fulfillment, and abundance. A new dawn. As dawn approached, the voice grew softer, but its words lingered in her heart. Do not doubt what I have revealed to you tonight. Hold fast to your faith, for the journey ahead will require courage and trust. But know this, I am with you every step of the way. The first rays of sunlight broke through the horizon, illuminating the world in golden light. Sarah felt a peace she hadn't known in years. She knew this night had changed her forever. She rose from her chair, no longer burdened but renewed, ready to embrace the path ahead. The voice had left her with one final assurance. Victory is inevitable, my beloved. Move forward with confidence, knowing that my hand is upon you. And with that, Sarah stepped into the new day, her heart full of faith and her spirit ready to embrace the extraordinary life ahead. The path revealed. The morning light flooded Sarah's home, each ray a reminder of the transformative night she had just experienced. Yet, as the day wore on, the extraordinary began to feel distant, overshadowed by the familiar hum of daily life. The doubts that had been silenced started whispering again, subtle and persistent. Was it all real? Could she truly believe the voice and its promises? It wasn't long before her resolve was tested. As she prepared to leave for work, an email notification lit up her phone screen. The message, curt and impersonal, informed her that her application for a long-sought promotion had been rejected. Sarah's chest tightened as disappointment washed over her. Hadn't the voice promised change? Was this rejection part of the plan? But then, a memory from the night before stirred within her. What the enemy meant for harm, I will turn to good. Do not fear, for I am already there. The words resonated, urging her to trust, even when circumstances seemed bleak. The unseen thread. Determined not to let the rejection define her day, Sarah went about her usual routine. At lunchtime, she decided to take a walk in the nearby park. The fresh air and rustling leaves provided a sense of solace. As she strolled, lost in thought, she nearly bumped into an older woman seated on a bench, her hands busy knitting a vibrant tapestry. Beautiful work, Sarah remarked, stopping to admire the intricate patterns. The woman looked up, her eyes twinkling. Thank you, dear. Every thread has its place, even if it doesn't make sense at first. Sarah smiled politely, but the words lingered. They reminded her of something the voice had said. The delays you faced were not denials but refinements. Could it be that the setbacks in her life were threads in a larger tapestry, weaving a picture she couldn't yet see? As if reading her thoughts, the woman added, sometimes, the most chaotic patterns lead to the most beautiful designs. You just have to trust the process. The call to action. That evening, Sarah sat in her small apartment, reflecting on the events of the day. She couldn't shake the feeling that the encounter with the woman was more than coincidence. The voice had promised signs, after all, and this felt like one. She pulled out a journal and began writing. She listed her dreams, her frustrations, and the promises she believed had been spoken to her. As the words flowed, she felt a renewed sense of clarity. The rejection, she realized, wasn't the end of the road. It was a redirection. Inspired, she began to research alternative opportunities, something she hadn't done in years. She discovered a community event focused on mentorship and networking for women in her field. Though hesitant, she registered for it. The voice's words echoed in her mind. Move boldly, for I am with you at every step. A divine appointment. The day of the event arrived, and Sarah entered the bustling hall with a mix of excitement and apprehension. She moved from booth to booth, introducing herself and sharing her aspirations. It was uncomfortable at first, but each conversation chipped away at her insecurities. Then she met Emily, a successful entrepreneur whose energy was magnetic. They struck up a conversation that quickly became deep and meaningful. Emily listened intently as Sarah shared her journey, offering insights and encouragement that felt eerily tailored to her situation. Have you ever considered starting your own business? Emily asked. The question took Sarah by surprise. She had toyed with the idea, but dismissed it as unrealistic. Yet, as Emily spoke about the resources and support available, the possibility began to feel attainable. Here, Emily said, handing Sarah her card. Let's stay in touch. I think you're on the brink of something amazing. The power of alignment. As Sarah left the event, she couldn't help but feel that meeting Emily was another divine sign. The voice had spoken of people who would enter her life to help fulfill her purpose, and Emily seemed to be one of them. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Emily stayed in contact. Emily introduced her to a network of professionals who provided guidance, encouragement, and resources. With their support, Sarah began laying the groundwork for her own consulting business, a venture that aligned perfectly with her passions and skills. It wasn't easy. There were late nights, moments of doubt, and unexpected obstacles. But every time Sarah felt overwhelmed, she recalled the voice's assurance. The power to overcome is already within you. Trust me. Transformation unfolds. Months passed, and Sarah's business began to take shape. What had started as a small idea grew into a flourishing enterprise. She secured her first major client, a company that had initially rejected her for the promotion she'd sought. The irony wasn't lost on her. The rejection that had once felt like a setback had propelled her into a purpose far greater than she could have imagined. The voice's promises continued to manifest. The financial freedom she achieved allowed her to give back to her community. She started mentoring young professionals, sharing the lessons she had learned on her journey. Her life became a testament to the transformative power of faith, perseverance, and divine timing. A new horizon. One evening, as Sarah sat on her porch, she reflected on how far she had come. The sky was once again painted in hues of orange and violet, reminiscent of the night her journey had begun. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before, a deep, abiding confidence that she was exactly where she was meant to be. And then, as if on cue, she felt the familiar warmth of the voice. It was softer this time, almost like a whisper carried on the wind. My child, it said, you have done well. The path you now walk is one of promise fulfilled. But remember, this is only the beginning. Greater things are yet to come. Sarah closed her eyes, letting the words settle in her heart. She didn't know what the future held, but she no longer needed to. She had learned to trust the process, to see obstacles as opportunities, and to embrace the journey with faith and courage. As the first stars appeared in the sky, she whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. Her life had been transformed, not by her own strength, but by the gentle guidance of a voice that had called her to something extraordinary. And with that, Sarah rose, ready to face whatever came next. The horizon of purpose. The days turned into weeks, and Sarah's consulting business grew steadily. With each passing milestone, she marveled at how everything seemed to align in ways she couldn't have orchestrated herself. Still, a lingering question remained. What is the ultimate purpose of all this? One crisp morning, as Sarah prepared for a keynote speech at a major industry conference, she felt a deep stirring in her spirit. The voice that had guided her through so much was quiet, but its presence was undeniable. It wasn't until she stood backstage, peering out at the bustling crowd, that she felt the familiar warmth settle over her. "This is your moment," the voice whispered gently. "But remember, this is not just about you. What I have given you, you must now share." The words resonated like a drumbeat in her chest. It wasn't just about her achievements or her transformation. It was about the lives she could touch and the hearts she could inspire. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The power of connection. The room fell silent as Sarah began to speak. She shared her story, not just the polished version of her success, but the raw and unfiltered truth of her struggles, doubts, and fears. She spoke of the voice that had guided her, the rejection that had redirected her, and the miraculous alignments that had shaped her journey. As she spoke, she noticed the audience leaning in, their faces reflecting hope and connection. There were tears, nods of understanding, and the unmistakable energy of lives being touched. Sarah realized that this was the purpose the voice had alluded to. Her story wasn't just hers. It was a gift meant to ignite change in others. After her speech, the line of people waiting to speak with her stretched across the room. One by one, they shared their own struggles and how her words had given them hope. A young woman tearfully explained how she had been on the verge of giving up on her dreams, but now felt renewed. A middle-aged man confessed that he had been stuck in a career he hated, and her story had reminded him that it was never too late to change. The ripple effect. That night, Sarah sat in her hotel room, overwhelmed by the responses she had received. She thought back to the voice's promise. "It is not only about what I do in you, but also about what I do around you." The magnitude of those words began to sink in. Her influence was no longer confined to her own life or even her immediate circle. She was now a vessel for something much greater, a ripple of change moving through the lives of countless others. But with this realization came a new sense of responsibility. The voice had warned her that this power required obedience and faith. How could she remain a faithful steward of this calling? Facing new challenges. As Sarah leaned further into her purpose, new challenges arose. The demands on her time and energy increased. There were moments when she felt overwhelmed, stretched thin by the expectations of others, and the weight of her mission. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, she sat alone in her office, questioning if she was truly capable of carrying the burden. The silence felt deafening, and for the first time in months, she wondered if she had misinterpreted her calling. Then, softly, the voice returned. "Even in your exhaustion, I am with you. Remember, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. You were never meant to carry this alone." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she felt the familiar peace envelop her. She realized that she had been trying to do too much on her own, forgetting the divine partnership that had brought her this far. A new season of growth. Refreshed and renewed, Sarah began to build a team to support her growing mission. She understood now that collaboration was key to sustaining the work she had been called to do. With prayer and discernment, she selected individuals whose values aligned with hers and who shared her passion for empowering others. Her team wasn't just a group of employees. They were collaborators in a vision much greater than any of them could accomplish alone. Together, they launched new initiatives, including workshops, mentorship programs, and scholarships for aspiring entrepreneurs. The impact was immediate and profound. Stories poured in from people who had attended her programs or received her mentorship. A single mother launched her own thriving business. A recent college graduate found the courage to pursue an unconventional career path. Each success story was a testament to the transformative power of faith, perseverance, and purpose. The global impact. Years passed, and Sarah's influence grew beyond what she could have ever imagined. Her story was featured in articles, interviews, and even a documentary. Yet, through it all, she remained grounded, remembering the voice's instruction to move forward with humility and trust. One day, Sarah received an invitation to speak at an international summit. The event brought together leaders from diverse backgrounds, all seeking to create positive change in the world. As she stood on stage, looking out at the sea of faces, she felt the weight of the moment. "This is the fulfillment of the promise," the voice whispered. "But it is also a new beginning. What I have placed in you will continue to multiply." Sarah spoke with a boldness she hadn't known before. She shared not just her story, but a message of hope and empowerment that transcended cultural and geographical boundaries. She encouraged her audience to listen for the divine whispers in their own lives and to trust that their struggles were shaping them for something greater. Legacy of light. In the years that followed, Sarah's life became a testament to the truth of the voice's words. She saw doors open that she had never imagined and witnessed lives transformed in ways that only divine alignment could achieve. Yet she never forgot where it all began. A quiet night on her porch, when an extraordinary voice called her to step into the unknown. Sarah's story became a beacon of hope for generations to come. People who heard her speak or read her books were inspired to pursue their own callings, confident that they too could overcome their doubts and fears. The ripple effect of her obedience and faith created waves of change that extended far beyond her lifetime. And through it all, the voice remained her guide, reminding her that the journey was not hers alone. It was a sacred partnership, a dance of trust and surrender, and a celebration of the extraordinary power of purpose. As Sarah looked back on her life, she saw not just the impact she had made, but the divine thread that had woven it all together. The tapestry was complete, and it was beautiful. The eternal flame. Years after Sarah's journey had begun, she found herself standing at the edge of a quiet lake. The sun was setting, casting golden ripples across the water. This had become her sanctuary, a place to reflect on her life's path and the promises that had unfolded. Despite all the achievements and the lives she had touched, Sarah felt a quiet stirring within her soul. It wasn't dissatisfaction, but an insistent nudge, as if the journey was far from over. As she watched the sun dip below the horizon, the familiar warmth of the voice returned, enveloping her like a comforting embrace. "My child," it whispered, "what you have accomplished is only the beginning. The flame of purpose that burns within you is eternal, meant to illuminate not just this generation but those to come. Are you ready to step into the next season of your calling?" A new calling emerges. The word struck a chord deep within Sarah. While she had found success and fulfillment, she had also grown comfortable in the familiarity of her work. She realized that the nudge she felt was a call to something new, something that would require her to once again step into the unknown. The next morning, Sarah woke with a renewed sense of urgency. She felt a pull to expand her mission, not just locally or nationally but globally. The voice had spoken of generations, of a flame that would continue to burn long after her time. It was a vision that both excited and terrified her. She began to seek guidance, spending hours in prayer and reflection. As she did, the path ahead became clearer. Her new calling was not just to inspire individuals, but to build something lasting. An institution that could outlive her, one that would serve as a beacon of hope and empowerment for future generations. The birth of a movement. Sarah began laying the groundwork for what would become the Eternal Impact Initiative, a global network dedicated to equipping individuals with the tools, resources, and community needed to fulfill their unique callings. The initiative was more than a program. It was a movement. Its mission was to foster a culture of faith, resilience, and purpose across every continent. Launching something of this magnitude was no small task. Sarah faced countless challenges: bureaucratic red tape, funding obstacles, and skepticism from those who doubted the feasibility of such a grand vision. Yet every time she felt the weight of the task, the voice reminded her, The battle is not yours, it is mine. Move boldly, for I have gone before you." With this assurance, Sarah pressed on. She partnered with influential leaders, philanthropists, and organizations who shared her vision. Each connection felt divinely orchestrated, as if the pieces of a puzzle were falling into place, building an enduring legacy. The first major milestone came 3 years later, with the opening of the Eternal Impact Center, a sprawling campus located in a small but central country. The center was a hub of innovation and transformation, offering workshops, mentorship, and resources to people from all walks of life. It became a place where dreams were rekindled, where the discouraged found hope, and where leaders were equipped to change their communities. One of the center's first success stories was a young woman named Amina, who had fled a war-torn country with nothing but the clothes on her back. At the Eternal Impact Center, she found not only practical skills, but also the confidence to rebuild her life. Years later, Amina would return to her homeland, founding a school that provided education and opportunities for hundreds of children. Stories like Amina's began to pour in from all corners of the globe. Each one was a testament to the power of faith, resilience, and the divine alignment that Sarah had experienced in her own life. The fire spreads. As the initiative grew, so did its reach. Satellite centers were established in underserved regions, virtual programs expanded the movement's impact, and partnerships with local leaders ensured that the work was culturally relevant and sustainable. Sarah's vision of a global network was becoming a reality. Despite her growing responsibilities, Sarah remained deeply connected to the work on the ground. She frequently traveled to meet with program participants, listen to their stories, and offer encouragement. These encounters reminded her of why she had begun this journey in the first place. On one such visit, Sarah met a young boy named Matteo, who had been orphaned during a natural disaster. Despite his circumstances, Matteo radiated a quiet strength. He shared with Sarah his dream of becoming an engineer to rebuild his community. "You can do it," Sarah told him with conviction. "The challenges you faced have prepared you for something extraordinary." Years later, Matteo would write to Sarah, sharing that he had not only achieved his dream but was now mentoring other children in his community, passing on the hope that Sarah had given him. The turning point. As the Eternal Impact Initiative celebrated its 10th anniversary, Sarah reflected on how far it had come. The movement had touched millions of lives, and yet she sensed there was more to do. The voice returned, not as a whisper this time, but as a resounding call. "My child, you have carried the flame well, but now it is time to pass it on. This work is not yours to complete alone. Raise up others to lead, to innovate, and to carry the vision forward." Sarah understood the weight of these words. It was time to prepare the next generation of leaders who would continue the work she had started. She began mentoring a select group of individuals, pouring into them the wisdom and lessons she had learned over the years. She empowered them to take ownership of the movement, trusting that the voice would guide them as it had guided her. The Eternal Flame. One quiet evening, as Sarah sat by the lake that had become her sanctuary, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She had answered the call, carried the flame, and passed it on. The voice spoke one final time. "You have been faithful, my child. The work you began will continue, and the flame will never be extinguished. Well done." Tears filled Sarah's eyes, not from sorrow, but from profound gratitude. She had lived a life of purpose, guided by faith and sustained by a divine promise. As the stars appeared in the night sky, she knew that her journey had been part of something far greater than herself, a legacy that would endure, an eternal flame lighting the way for generations to come. And with that, Sarah closed her eyes, her heart full, knowing that the work would continue and the flame would burn on. The Eternal Cycle. Years after Sarah had stepped away from the day-to-day leadership of the Eternal Impact Initiative, the organization had become a living, breathing testament to her faith and vision. It thrived under the leadership of the next generation, whose ideas and passion carried the movement into new realms. Sarah had retired to a small town by the mountains, content to watch the seeds she planted grow into a vast forest. But even in her retirement, the voice never left her. It continued to speak, guiding her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Sarah thought she had reached the pinnacle of her journey, but life had one more chapter waiting to be written. A chapter that would connect her legacy to the lives of strangers in a way she could never have imagined. A quiet life interrupted. One morning, Sarah received a letter in her mailbox. It was handwritten, its ink smudged slightly as if the writer had been emotional while crafting it. She opened it to find a heartfelt message from a young man named Louis. "Dear Sarah," it began, "I don't know if this letter will ever reach you, but I felt compelled to write. My name is Louis, and I am from a small village in South America. Your organization saved my life, though you probably didn't know it at the time." Louis went on to explain how the Eternal Impact Initiative had funded a community center in his village when he was a child. The center had become a place of refuge for him, offering not just education but also hope and encouragement. A mentor there had shared Sarah's story with him, and it had inspired him to dream beyond his circumstances. Now an adult, Louis had become a teacher and a leader in his community, using his position to uplift others. He thanked Sarah for starting the movement that had given him and so many others a second chance at life. Sarah's hands trembled as she finished the letter. Though she had received countless messages over the years, something about Louis's words struck her deeply. It reminded her that the flame she had carried was not just eternal, it was cyclical, sparking new flames in places she might never see. A call to return. Louis's letter reignited something within Sarah. For years, she had believed her role in the initiative was complete. But now, she felt the unmistakable pull of the voice once again. "My child," it said, "there is still work for you to do. The seeds you have sown are bearing fruit, but some fields need tending. Will you go where I send you?" Sarah hesitated. She was older now, her energy not what it once was. Yet, she couldn't ignore the call. She prayed for guidance, and the answer came swiftly. She was to visit the places where her work had flourished, to witness firsthand the impact, and to strengthen the roots of the movement. The journey of rediscovery. Sarah began her journey, traveling first to South America to meet Louis. The village was nestled in a lush valley, its vibrant colors and warm people making it feel alive with promise. Louis greeted her with open arms, tears streaming down his face as he thanked her for everything she had done. But it was Sarah who felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Walking through the community, she saw the ripple effect of her initiative. The children in the community center were not just learning, they were dreaming. The adults who had once been weighed down by despair were now empowered to create a brighter future. As she listened to their stories, Sarah felt the weight of the voice's promise anew. The flame will never be extinguished. She realized that the work she had begun had taken on a life of its own, fueled by the faith and determination of people like Louis. Unexpected revelations. During her travels, Sarah encountered challenges she hadn't anticipated. In one region, the local center faced the threat of closure due to political instability. In another, a natural disaster had left a community struggling to rebuild. These situations could have felt discouraging, but Sarah saw them differently. "This is why I'm here," she told herself, "not just to celebrate what's been achieved, but to stand with those who are still in the fight." With her experience and connections, Sarah was able to rally resources and advocates to support these struggling communities. She realized that her presence brought hope, not because of who she was, but because she reminded people of the divine alignment that had guided her entire journey. A new flame ignited. In her final stop, Sarah visited a remote village in Africa where one of the newest Eternal Impact Centers had been established. The village's leader, a woman named Nyasha, greeted Sarah with a smile that radiated warmth and strength. "Your story brought me here," Nyasha said as they walked through the center. "When I read about your journey, I knew I couldn't give up. If you could trust the process, so could I." Nyasha explained how the center had transformed the village, providing education, healthcare, and training in sustainable agriculture. It had become a lifeline, pulling families out of poverty and giving them the tools to thrive. That evening, as the villagers gathered for a celebration, Nyasha asked Sarah to speak. Standing under the stars, Sarah shared her heart, reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. "I used to think the flame was mine to carry," she said, "but I see now that it belongs to all of us. Each of you carries it forward, and together, we light the way for the generations to come." The eternal cycle. When Sarah returned home, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She knew her journey had come full circle, and yet it was far from over. The flame she had carried had ignited countless others, creating an eternal cycle of hope and purpose. In the quiet of her mountain home, Sarah reflected on everything the voice had promised, the obstacles that had strengthened her, the doors that had opened, and the ripple effect that had changed the world. She knew now, more than ever, that the voice had been right all along. Victory was inevitable. And so, Sarah continued to live, not just as a steward of the flame, but as a witness to its power. A power that moved mountains, transformed lives, and burned brightly, eternally, in the hearts of all it touched. The flame endures. The years passed, and Sarah's legacy became an enduring force in the world. Though she had largely retreated from the public eye, her name remained synonymous with hope, resilience, and transformation. The Eternal Impact Initiative continued to thrive, now spanning dozens of countries, reaching people in places Sarah herself had never dreamed of. Yet, in her quiet mountain retreat, Sarah found herself reflecting on an unfamiliar feeling, a sense that something greater still awaited. One winter evening, as the first snow dusted the landscape, Sarah sat by her fireplace, reading letters sent by those whose lives had been changed by the initiative. Each story was a thread in the vast tapestry of her life's work, yet one stood out. It was from a man named Elias, a former prisoner who had encountered her story through a program designed for incarcerated individuals. "I was at my lowest," Elias wrote, "when I came across your words. You said every trial has a purpose, and that even the broken can become vessels of light. Those words saved me. I'm free now, and I've started helping others who feel trapped in darkness. Thank you for giving me hope when I thought all was lost." The letter lingered in Sarah's hands long after she had read it. She felt a familiar stirring in her soul, as though the voice was preparing to speak again. The final call. That night, Sarah dreamed of a vast, golden field stretching to the horizon. At its center stood a great tree, its branches laden with fruit. Beneath it, people from all walks of life gathered, their faces radiant with hope. As Sarah approached the tree in her dream, she heard the voice again, clearer and stronger than it had ever been. "My child," it said, "you have carried the flame faithfully, and the seeds you planted have grown into a harvest. But there is one more thing I ask of you. The world still holds places untouched by the light, hearts still burdened by darkness. I am sending you there, not as you once were, but as a guide for those who will follow." Sarah woke with a start, her heart racing. The dream was unlike any she had experienced, vivid and full of meaning. She understood what it meant. Though she had stepped back from leading the initiative, her role was not yet finished. The flame still required tending, and the harvest was still being gathered. A journey into the unknown. With renewed purpose, Sarah began preparing for her new mission. This time, it was different. She wasn't traveling to oversee projects or meet with leaders. She was venturing into forgotten corners of the world, places where the initiative's influence had yet to reach. Her journey took her to isolated villages, overcrowded urban centers, and refugee camps where hope was a scarce commodity. In each place, Sarah saw the same need she had encountered decades earlier, the yearning for a light to break through the darkness. But Sarah didn't arrive with grand speeches or programs. She came to listen, to witness, and to plant seeds. She shared her story with those who felt forgotten, reminding them that even the smallest spark could ignite a fire. In a remote mountain village, she met Anna, a widow raising her grandchildren in dire poverty. Anna had given up on the idea of change, believing her circumstances were unalterable. Sarah sat with her, sharing not just her own struggles, but the countless stories of others who had overcome. By the end of their conversation, Anna's eyes glimmered with something new. The faint but unmistakable light of hope. A movement reborn. As Sarah moved from place to place, she began to see a new pattern emerging. Those who heard her story didn't just take inspiration. They took action. Anna, for instance, started a cooperative with other widows in her village, pooling their resources to build a sustainable livelihood. Elias, the man who had written to Sarah from prison, became a leader in his community, organizing support groups for former inmates to help them reintegrate into society. And countless others began small but impactful projects that transformed their families, neighborhoods, and beyond. The movement was reborn, not as an extension of Sarah's work, but as something entirely new. It was no longer about her vision, but about the countless visions she had helped awaken. The gathering of generations. Years later, on the 50th anniversary of the Eternal Impact Initiative, Sarah was invited to speak at a global gathering of leaders, activists, and ordinary people whose lives had been touched by the movement. She hesitated at first, unsure if she still had anything to offer. But the voice gently nudged her. This is not about you. It is about the flame you carried, and the light it has become. When Sarah arrived at the gathering, she was overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what the initiative had become. Thousands of people filled the massive hall, each one a testament to the flame that had sparked in her so many years ago. Standing on the stage, Sarah looked out at the sea of faces, young and old. From every corner of the globe, they represented the eternal cycle of light and hope. Tears filled her eyes as she began to speak. "I thought my journey was about carrying a flame," she said, her voice steady but emotional. "But I see now that it was never mine to carry alone. Each of you is a keeper of that flame, a part of this great tapestry of purpose and resilience. Together, we are the light that dispels the darkness, the eternal horizon." After the gathering, Sarah returned to her mountain home for what would be her final years. Though her body grew weaker, her spirit remained vibrant, sustained by the knowledge that her life's work had become a force far greater than herself. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Sarah felt the voice return one last time. "My child," it said, "you have been faithful with what I entrusted to you. The flame burns brightly, carried by many hands. Your work is complete, but the light will never fade. Rest now and know that your legacy is eternal." With those words, Sarah closed her eyes, a peaceful smile on her face. She had lived a life of purpose, and her story had become a beacon for generations. The flame she had carried now burned in countless hearts, an eternal light illuminating paths yet to be walked. And so, Sarah's journey came to an end, but her legacy lived on. Proof that one life, guided by faith and resilience, could change the world forever. The everlasting light. As Sarah's journey came to its natural end, the world continued to feel her presence in every act of kindness, every moment of courage, and every flame she had helped ignite. Her life was not just a story of personal triumph, but a testament to the transformative power of faith, perseverance, and purpose. The Eternal Impact Initiative thrived, not as a monument to her achievements, but as a living, breathing movement that grew with each passing year. It reached corners of the world she never visited and touched lives she never knew. The people she inspired carried forward her message. Your struggles prepare you, your faith sustains you, and your purpose transforms the world. The lesson of the flame. Sarah's life taught an enduring truth. One act of faith can set in motion a ripple that changes countless lives. Her willingness to trust the divine call, even when the path was unclear, became a model for those who sought to make a difference. She proved that obstacles are not barriers but bridges to something greater, and that even in the face of doubt, hope can prevail. Her legacy reminds us that we are all keepers of a flame, capable of illuminating the darkness around us. The power to transform lives lies not in grand gestures, but in small, consistent acts of love, service, and resilience. A call to action. As we reflect on Sarah's story, let it serve as a reminder that every journey has meaning, and every challenge has purpose. Like Sarah, we are all part of a greater tapestry, woven together by unseen hands. The light we carry, our unique gifts, dreams, and passions, is meant to be shared, to ignite hope in others, and to build a world where faith and purpose thrive. Sarah's voice, though no longer heard, continues to echo in the lives she touched and the lessons she left behind. Her story challenges us to ask, what flame am I carrying? How will I share it with the world? The everlasting promise. As the sun sets and rises again, Sarah's legacy endures, proving that even the smallest light can illuminate the darkest night. The lesson is simple but profound. Trust the journey, embrace your purpose, and never underestimate the power of a single flame to ignite a world of change. And so, her story closes not with an ending, but with an invitation to carry the light forward, to live with courage and conviction, and to be a part of the eternal cycle of hope, faith, and love. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.